So what are some of the biggest challenges you're currently seeing in international school admissions and marketing today based on your individual contexts? Almira, I'd love for you to kick this one off for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, living in Saudi Arabia, and currently I think it's a very, I would say, hot market for international schools right now. And we're having new competitors coming. I believe I heard that there are 500 schools planned to be built around the city, and the city is being developing so quickly and so rapidly, which is, I think, very good for new families coming in. But it's also I think it makes me aware of how we are presenting ourselves, in the international school market, and how to make sure that we are still kind of not different, but that people can understand how we differ from other international schools. And I believe that being a non-selective is something that we are very proud of. So but for me, I would say that major challenge right now is the high rate of relocations. So because Saudi Arabia is currently very interested, we have diplomatic families coming in, we have families from different organizations, also international ones, and they are recruiting people from all over the world, including the families. So families, they have this very limited time, to find a good school, the accommodation. So of course they expect the admissions team to be effective, also proactive, and support during transition process. So on one side, it's good because we always know that the family from Romania or from Bulgaria or from the US will come and they will be looking for the admissions. But also I cannot guarantee that they will stay for 5 years or 3 years. Or actually sometimes parents come to us and they say, we actually don't know how long we're going to be here. So I would say this is something that I see as a challenge. Certainly, I think that engaging them in the school community, I think, helps to facilitate strong relationships with them. So initially, then it becomes about the sharing positive experience, the experience that they have here, which becomes like a word of mouth marketing tool. Yes, just making sure that they're always engaged with the school community. So it's kind of like reply to to your question as well.
Yeah, Katie, what are your thoughts on that one?
It's funny. So our market's a little bit different here in Vietnam than Almira's in Saudi, in that we have not so many Western and international expats coming in. We're actually, it's our local market that is driving the interest in international schools. We're getting, just like Almira, a lot of competition coming in from franchise schools and organizations. And I think also, we, just like all the schools around the world, I think really standing out with what your differentiators are. I don't think that parents always understand what the differences are between schools. And so I think that as marketers, we need to really think about how are we educating them on what is the difference between this curriculum versus that curriculum, or what are the benefits of a not-for-profit school versus a for-profit school, or how can we stand out in the marketplace? I think that is becoming much more relevant than it was 5-10 years ago.
Langa, I'd love to get your thoughts on that one, based in Thailand.
Yes. So of course, knowing Bangkok is an extremely competitive market. So for us, it's overwhelming options for families. So we have families who come and visit and they're seeing 6-7 other schools. So also just looking at how do we differentiate. Is it a parent is coming because of the curriculum? Is it the culture of the school that they like? Then making sure we emphasize that when they do come into contact with us. Then, of course, the Bangkok market is not just the schools that are here now. There's more great schools opening. So it's always having to be on top of your game, making sure you are standing out, and that when families do reach out, we give them the full experience.
Ashley, with your experience working with lots of different schools around the world, what are some of the challenges you're seeing?
Yeah, I think they've been mentioned. I think competition is probably number one. There were around 10,000 schools back in 2015. International schools there are about 15,000 now, and we're certainly seeing Saudi, for example, is kind of following the trajectory of the UAE in many respects, and huge competition. And I think Katie, you kind of mentioned it franchise schools and actually schools joining larger, often for-profit international school groups that really benefit from economies of scale from a marketing and admissions budget perspective. Having to compete with the kind of independents in the local community. So certainly, I think that's a pretty huge challenge. I think also, and Langa, you touched upon this, but from an admissions perspective, your parents just have more choice now from the increased number of schools. Both the number of schools in a given city, but also the curricular options among those schools and the facilities and much more. And also where we used to see, significant employer relocation packages, you don't really see those so much anymore. I know they were quite regional, but we don't really see them as much anymore. So that with the increased number of schools, I think you see parents have much more choice. They can actually choose the schools that they attend now rather than be given a select through from their employers. But then they have the financial considerations that come with that in school choice. So I certainly think, competition overall is one of the major challenges. Yeah.
Cătălina, what are your thoughts on some of those challenges that you've seen?
Thank you. Very interesting to hear from the different regions and to understand that we kind of battle the same dragon, so to speak, in some way. So if we look at Europe as a region, which I think is important to do, because when you look at a CEO or a CFO who is bidding on a job in Europe, they have the possibility to reside either in Albania or in Romania or in Bulgaria if they are the regional CEO, and therefore a school in Bucharest does not have as their competitors just the schools in Bucharest or in Romania, but also the schools in Tirana and the schools in Sofia, and it applies that way for many of the parts of Europe. So the differentiations in what we are offering as schools applies here as well. I wanted to highlight one thing that has been and continues, unfortunately, to be a big challenge for me, both in Denmark and in Romania, namely the admission of neurodiverse communities, neurodiverse students. And I don't know exactly when this will air, but I think it's a diverse week celebration, and I think it's important to also focus on that. While schools, it seems to me, I hope I'm going to be contradicted, while schools do look all the time for these differentiators and unique selling propositions as you would have them in a more corporate language, there is still a huge journey to be made for families with neurodiverse children who are relocating to find schools appropriate for their children. And so I wanted to ask you, Almira, actually, you mentioned you are non-selective. What does that exactly mean? Does that cover families with neurodivergent children?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm happy that we touched on this subject. We offer education opportunities for every children. So I don't know how in your schools, but basically we do not offer any admissions tests. There are no exams. We just usually invite them for a taster session, but it's not just to see whether they fit us or anything else. It's just to ensure that we support them, that the environment is the absolutely best for them. And usually after that, we offer them to enroll with us. But yes, we have 35% of our children are with special needs, and it's different kinds of needs. It could be some physical challenges. Some children, they have ADHD, they're on spectrum, they're with Down syndrome, and we follow the stipulation of Ministry of Education, so that we only can have a certain percentage of these children, and the 75, the rest of them are mainstream. But yes, for us, it's important to ensure that we provide the education to all of them. Doesn't matter, because ultimately we're all different. So we can't really say that someone is better or worse than anyone else. They're all different. So for us, it's our job to find what interests them and what they're interested in, what their passion is. But yeah, we have an inclusion department. I think it's the biggest in Riyadh. We have a learning support assistant. We have individualized educational plans for that, and we have learning support assistants as well. So yeah, and usually some parents, especially when they relocate, or even the local ones, they come to us because they have children with special needs.
Langa, Kate, I'd love to get your perspective on catering for neurodiverse students in your regions as well. That'd be really interesting to get your thoughts.
It's a challenging topic because it's not just whether the school wants to or not. It's really whether the school has the program that can meet the kids' needs. And then where can we be ethical with our parents, right? It's not fair to take money from a family and then not be able to support their child meet the needs that they have. So we have a pretty robust admissions system and a review process. We ask parents for all of the information. We have our director of student development review all the files. She meets with the teachers, and we really look and see, is this a student who will thrive in our program? Can we meet their needs? And do we have place? Because sometimes it's not even whether or not you can meet the child's needs, but do we have capacity at this time? And we will go through that whole process before we start to take any money from a family. So I feel like even though we are not an inclusive school, we are fair and just in our process of the admissions for the families.
And then to echo what Katie said, I think for us is something similar where it's, are we setting up the child for success? So we're making sure and we're reviewing the admissions process. If we don't think we're the best fit, regardless of if they have additional support or not, as hard as no's are, there might be a school that's a better fit. So we do have a great student success team, and whenever there's any indication of learning needs or any additional support required, they immediately are part of the panel. But the main objective being, we must be able to set up students for success and believe that we are the best school who can provide them, with success in the future. Otherwise, sadly, it's a no.
Yeah. I'd love to dive into what families in your regions generally expect from the admissions journey in a bit more depth there. So based on your geographical educational context, I'd love to understand how you're creating that sort of seamless, engaging experience for your families. Almira, I know we've touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to dive into that in a bit more depth, based in where you are currently.
I think for every school, for either it's international or public, I think it's important to create a very clear, understandable, and effective admissions process, and so that the families, doesn't matter where they come from, whether they what level of English they possess, that they understand what is expected of them and how we can support them during the transition process. So it all starts with the receiving an inquiry. Usually our website is the main source of all the contacts with the families, and what I've noticed is that here people are more interested in coming to a personalized school tour where they meet with the leadership team. We talk about the curriculum, and then we touch also on the admissions process. They have a school tour, and then basically we invite them for the taster session. For me, it's important also to basically lay down all the steps, kind of to ensure that they're not bombarded with the information, and then they receive the relevant information, on the first step 2, step 3, step 4, and basically once we move them through the funnel, the more they spend time with us, the more information I give them, so to ensure that they are aware of what they're getting themselves into, basically. And yes, to be proactive, I think, to be empathetic and communicative, and just ultimately to put myself in their shoes, just to think, this is something new for the family, and they don't really know, apart from the educational context, they don't really know the country. So we even sometimes help with the accommodation, not that we find it, but we just say, we have a couple of compounds nearby, if you'd like, we can provide you with the list of those. I was part of the team who launched transportation, because we also had families who wanted, the transportation, like the buses or the vans, because it was easier. Riyadh is a very big city and the traffic is something else. So it's just, being proactive and empathetic, and I think answer the questions before they're being asked, I would say.
Fantastic. Cătălina, what about yourself?
I think what Almira said. I think what I would outline from the many expectations that families have, and I think it's expectations and hopes, because we have to all be aware of the fact that most of the families who approach us in international schools before they've actually relocated do so with a lot of nervousness and with a lot of questions they don't even know they have. And so what I would say that they expect that what we share on our website is the truth, to kind of link to our previous conversation around the kind of students we serve. And I think they expect or hope for ease of access through our application process, and for empathy when either they have a situation that is more complex than we thought initially, or when they stumble through steps and we have to come to their aid, maybe sometimes 2 or 3 times. They expect a good experience of service from the admissions office, regardless of what that means. Because even for 2 families in the same school on the same day, same class, that's two different experiences.
Langa, what about yourself?
So, of course, for us at Verso, we are American curriculum, but our main unique selling point and what stands out is our project-based learning and design thinking. So the admissions process, we always say it's a 2-way, us to get to know you as a family, and for the family to get to know us as a school. So part of that is understanding parents. What do you understand about our school? What are your expectations? When we're assessing your child, it's a data point. It's not this is end all be all. You have a chance to meet the principal, what we call a converso. So you meet with them, your child asks questions, you as a family get to ask questions. So our admissions process is a 2-way, get to know us as a school as we get to know you, and then making sure it's a right fit on both ends. And yet again, the child is at the center of the decision. So you as a family feel you've gotten all your questions answered, you've gotten clarity on our approach to learning, whilst we also make sure we fully understand your child and the type of learner you are. So it's also done online, of course, for convenience, but we try and make each application personal, simply because of our special approach to learning. It's important that they have time with our principals to talk, ask questions, get any clarity they need.
Ashley, in terms of some of the trends that you're seeing, in terms of the admissions journey from different regions and the schools that you've worked with, it'd be great to get your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, I think in line with what Langa just mentioned, if you think about just human buying behavior, right? We if we buy emotionally, we justify logically, and there's nothing much more, no more kind of emotive driver than the education of your child or your child in general. So that parents want to know, is their child safe, secure, happy in the context of learning? Are they performing well academically or vocationally? And so I think what Langa mentioned about asking the right questions. If I put my sales hat on of my time working, selling software to people like you on the call and people that might be listening, we don't just go in and provide a demonstration of the software. We have a conversation first, and that conversation, it might be 5 minutes, it might be an hour, but we really try to understand if we are right for each other. And I think that applies in the context of international school families too. And so I think kind of gone are the days of putting league table performance and solely academic performance on websites as a key driver. Actually, what parents are looking for is the whole experience. Is my child going to be happy? Are they going to be safe? Are they going to be secure? But can I justify that with strong academic performance and fees, etc.? So certainly seeing that approach more and more in the independent markets here in the UK, in the US and Australia. And certainly slightly see that more with international schools too. But I do think it's very regional. If you're the only IB school in a given city, then that's probably quite a key driver of why parents might be coming to your school. But as the competition increases and there are 5 or 10 or 15 IB schools in your region, it's it's about the emotional drivers as to why a parent should choose your school, in my opinion. So
yeah.
Katie,
what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, you've had a bunch of really amazing answers, so I'm not sure how much more I can add. But one thing I would like to mention is I think that the journey begins even sooner than we really realize it. Parents are Googling, they're looking at reviews, they're on different search engines and really checking the school out before they've actually even made that initial contact with us. I mean, we've heard about stealth applications for a while, but we're also getting inquiries from people that we know nothing about. And I think one thing that we can lean into as admissions and marketing people is really leveraging some of the questions on our inquiry form so that we can do some lead nurturing before the family even comes into our office. Hey, here are some things our school offers. What excites you? Or what brings you to, what is it that makes your child love going to school? So that when they come into our office and start the conversations with us, we can personalize it in a different way than just going through the tick list when they're sitting in front of us. And we can also give them, through drip campaigns and such, information before they come to us so that they're not necessarily starting at zero when they're in our office.
Yeah. And just out of interest, before we move on to my next question, I'd love to learn a bit more about the different channels that you found to be effective for communicating your value proposition and perhaps addressing some of the common questions that families have in your region. Are there particular channels that you found, digital channels, TikTok, whether that's social media? Obviously, you got email drip campaigns. Are there particular channels that you found to be effective in your region? Almira?
Definitely, it's social media and especially Instagram. So Instagram here, is very, I wouldn't say valuable, but it's easier for parents to go on Instagram and to see what their child is up to today, rather than actually check the emails that we send through iSams, because it's easier, it's faster, you can see photos and videos, and actually they always react or comment if they see their child or children. So it works good with the current parents, but also for the prospective ones as well. So here's social media is something that drives our marketing campaigns, also with the videos and everything. Yes. So we try to be up to date as much as possible, and also be quick with the messages. WhatsApp here is also one of the tools where parents prefer to communicate. So sometimes some of them are call, or they just send emails, send messages and asking, about the fees or everything else. So we just start asking also questions as well. It was as Lena said, asking the right questions, so then we can invite them for a tour, and this is where the admissions process starts. But definitely social media.
Interesting. Katie, Cătălina, Langa, any particular channels that are effective for you guys in your different contexts?
I think
we're using LinkedIn.
Sorry. Go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say, we're using LinkedIn to really elevate the professional side. Yeah. So not just teacher recruitment, but to inform our parents who are on LinkedIn, hey, this is what's happening at the school for our teachers. Look how this benefits your kids. I think that really helps. And we don't have our parent portal locked down. So, oftentimes when we're communicating from the admissions office with prospective families, we might send them to the parent portal to see the handbook or to see the program of studies at the different divisions. And we've noticed that some of them are kind of bopping around in there to learn a little bit more about the school as well.
Cătălina.
I was going to mention the parent portal. We have in both schools that I've worked in, both were Veracross schools when I left. And I think it's important to also segment the audience of prospective, not just parents, but prospective parents and prospective students and prospective employees, because, social media in some areas speak to some, and then the parent portal and other platforms that offer communication directly between parents, like ClassList, for example, offer other types of venues. I fully admire you, Almira, that you are able to keep up with WhatsApp. In the schools that I was in, it's been a little bit of a scarecrow, because the people who are on this WhatsApp channels expect immediate responses, which are not always possible. And then by the time you did not respond, 200 chats are there. So I think the parent portal and a very well put together newsletter or announcement for the parents who are in the school, but potentially they could also share it, is a good gathering of everything that is happening and in a reliable setting for the parents. Because I have to mention, social media is amazing, but at least here in Europe, we have the General Data Protection Regulations, which has changed since 2018 quite a bit, the way that I used to operate in those realms. So we've had to look in different directions.
Langa?
I would say social media, a big one being here is Facebook, but the main thing is I'm old school, so word of mouth, and then I feel like people go to social media just to see, okay, my friend has told me their child is thriving in this school. Can I see what it's about? So for us, the main driving factor is still word of mouth. Social media, of course, is bringing in people, but it's more confirming what they've heard.
Yeah.
I would just jump in and add to that too, as you know, word of mouth or parent referrals. We talk a lot about the admissions experience and the portals and the forms and making sure that's all great, but actually the current parent experience is so important. You know, we need to make sure that parents are aware that our child is happy and secure and safe and is, and is performing really well. And so we shouldn't neglect the current parent experience. You know, the parents need to be informed of that so they can foster referrals and communicate with others via social media and generate referrals for schools. So admissions experience is one side, but current parent experience is equally important. Having a really clever and a specific marketing communication strategy for current parents is really important.
Yeah.
And Ashley, you're not wrong in the sense that if parents are in kindergarten, the only way they're going to know what's happening in 5th or 6th grade is through something like a newsletter,
because
right?
their kids aren't going to tell them, are they?
Right.
What did you do at school today? Nothing.
Well, yeah, they never do anything at school, but I think it's also really important because it's an amazing retention strategy, right? Like, okay, not only does it help word of mouth bring new families in, but it also, it's worth staying here because in grade 6, they get to do this really cool thing, or the program in grade 10 is this. And so I better stick around, right? There's no reason to leave because the other schools aren't going to offer this to me.
Yeah.
And in terms of diving into the use of data in a bit more depth now, so looking at personalizing marketing, personalizing your messaging, again, this improves engagement and retention, and ultimately streamlines the whole marketing admissions process. So how can schools, or how are you in particular using data to personalize your marketing, improve engagement with current and prospective students and families? Almira, it'd be great to get your thoughts on that one.
Sure. So we ask when we receive inquiry and we're about to invite them for a tour, we just ask, can you please share a little bit more information about Charlie, what his interests and hobbies are, what is his favorite subject, and just if it would be good to know for us, some information about his personality. So by the time maybe when they, first of all, parents are actually quite excited and grateful that we are interested, in the child and not just sending them an invitation for a tour. And then there is a short summary about Charlie, and then I send this information to the leadership team, to the principal, so that by the time when they come for a tour, she might say something. Oh, Charlie, I heard that you like swimming. Do you know that actually we have a swimming pool? So we use that. But also for us, it's important that from the admission side, everything that we receive during our meetings and also during the email exchange, that it's all stored on ISAM. So this is what we use for the school management platform. Yeah, so everything, even the notes sometimes of the meetings, when the family was last contacted, it all goes there. So it really helps to personalize the marketing campaigns as well, because sometimes parents can come to us and say that, we really care for our children to be happy. And if I hear it several times, what has been happening, now we put more focus on about the pastoral care on our social media campaigns and the marketing campaigns, on the well-being and how we support our children.
Ashley, how can schools use data more effectively in your view?
I guess I'll put my software sales hat on here. I mean, of course, any admission system should track things like year-on-year trends and performance year to date versus this year and referral sources and much, much more. But I think it should go a step further. You should be able to do things like, not look at just conversion rates across stages, but how does a tour affect my conversion rate? How does an open day affect my conversion rate? How does a personalized tour where I've matched up the interests of the student with a current student, does that improve my conversion rate? Am I wasting a lot of time on that? So having a really well-structured CRM that allows you to do some of these things without exporting data from 5 different sources and working for hours and hours on a spreadsheet, which is what a lot of schools are doing right now, is really important. Because I think schools need to be agile. They shouldn't sit down once per year and set the strategy for the year and review a year later. They should be agile, and they should have this data at their fingertips to be able to adjust as they go. So I think that's one thing I would say. I also think just generally understanding why parents choose a school and why parents re-enroll in a school, where in cases where they aren't just moving away from the country, is really important. So lots of schools that I've spoken to in the US and the UK and internationally actually will have a specific process leading up to the re-enrollment period where they have parent days. They really try to understand from a current parent perspective, why are you at our school? Why do you continue to re-enroll your child into our school? And they use that as part of their admissions and marketing strategy. And I think a lot of this can only really be achieved by having really good historical data in a and of course with my software hat on, in a platform that combines your current student data and historical enrolled student data with your admissions data. And that's where, sometimes all the spreadsheets come in because they're 2 separate databases, they're 2 separate systems. So lots more I think we could talk about on that subject, but really good reporting and data for sure is important.
Katie, how are you using data?
Well, I think another source of data that we haven't really talked about is our surveys, right? So when a family chooses your school, what was it that made you decide? How did you hear about our school? What made you decide to choose our school? We even ask what other schools you're looking at. So when you come in my office, I have a list of which of my competitors you might also be interested in. And then exit surveys or departure surveys on your families as they're leaving the school, and asking them, why are you leaving, maybe where you're going, how you thought of different things. And then a survey 3 months in from the new families, how have you been onboarded? All of those kind of things really help us get some meaty information. And then one other thing that we do on our application form it started for a reason of looking to see where we could get our students into internships, which parents we could hit up for an internship with the students. We were asking parents what industries they're in. Where do you work, in what industry? Well, then when we were doing our social media, we started to target people that work in those industries, people that have done this. We looking at price ranges. Our school is a luxury brand. There's no way around it at our price point. So people who have also looked at other luxury brands. So as we're targeting our marketing, we can be a little bit more specific about who sees our ads, because it doesn't do us any good if we get 20 applications from people whose children wouldn't qualify from our school or who can't pay the fees.
Cătălina, Langa, what are your thoughts on that one in terms of data use?
I wanted to bring the attention a little bit to one way that admissions offices use data to help the school be stable, namely the projections that we do every year. And Ashley was touching on that very well. I still remember, 10, 15 years ago when I was doing things by hand and the systems were what they were, and then we were adapting to that. And I really want to commend companies like Veracross and other companies that are on the market that help admissions offices, because they've really listened and really captured the needs that are in the offices and adapted. The fact that admissions offices have data that is well organized, consistent. Obviously, if we put it in the system that way. And accurate supports the boards and the leadership teams to create budgets, which is in fact the lifeline of the school. And so I would say that data is truly like behind that lifeline, in starting with projections and all the way to marketing and to knowing, like Katie was saying, what is happening in the industry. And apart from what you were mentioning, Katie, very well in terms of targeting, I would say that to stay on the subject of projections, if you know what industries are sending children to your school, then by following also what is happening in economics and in politics, you will know which industry is hit by something, and therefore be able to be that agile that Ashley is mentioning and adapt before that hits you as well as much as you can. So data is the new oil. That's how they say. So, it's and I hope that my colleagues, I'm learning. I'm past a certain age where that's easy, but I hope also my colleagues are trying to use AI tools as much as possible to read this data fast and go to reports, because it's quite amazing what you can do.
You touched on the big one, AI. Yeah. Before we quickly dive into that, Langa, I'd love to get your thoughts on that one in terms of data use and Verso and how you're using it to effectively streamline things.
Yes, and so much you can do with data, but just to add on to what everyone said, another one is understanding your families and their demographics. So in terms of age, if you're looking at your family age ranges of the parents, you know where to market. Are they reading the newspaper and trust more in the newspaper? Is that who you're attracting? Or are they more digital and you're focusing on Facebook, Instagram? So understanding your current parents will help you grow. Even just to look at, and Bangkok location is something so big. So if you can see where are most of your families coming from, is distance a factor for them, then you also know how to market your school. Distance might not be the reason that they're picking you. So there's so many ways to use data as well in terms of marketing efforts.
Just out of interest quickly, are there any AI tools that you've found to be particularly effective in terms of marketing and streamline the admissions process perhaps? Is there any thoughts on that one?
Totally on board with ChatGPT for email writing, Napkin for creating graphics or Canva. I think that it can only help us, right? And I think that Cătălina is correct. We need to be embracing it to figure out ways to, when you're differentiating and doing that different marketing, and you're setting up a drip campaign, you don't really want to write 15 emails from scratch. Right. Or sometimes you just need that little nudge to kind of go, okay, think of it this way, or look at it that way, or does this sound friendly enough? So I think we should be embracing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to jump in there?
I would. Sorry, go ahead, Cătălina.
Sorry, thank you, Ashley. I just want to share, before I left Copenhagen, my team and I were working on using AI, and unfortunately, I don't know, I think it was Notebook LLM, to help new families in many ways access the application form instructions. So, how you have, for example, families who like to read different instructions, but maybe others want to listen. So this AI tool could very quickly create a 10-minute podcast or a 5-minute podcast that actually sounds kind of fun. And of course, you can play with voices and accents and whatever, and walk you through the application process. And then at the same time, quite terrifying, to be honest, for we were able to record one of my colleagues who was presenting the school in English. He just showed that to me in Romanian. And I have to say, that was a click of a button, and it was perfect Romanian with an accent and the correct movement of the mouth, which was very scary for me. But it's a great tool to support families who need to understand in their native language.
Ashley, sorry, I think you're going to jump in there, weren't you?
I mean, yes, I think I would agree, Cătălina. There's definitely a lot of scary elements to AI. I think everybody won't be shy to admit that. I think, like, from a data informed decision making perspective, I think AI relies on good data. I think there are a lot of schools out there right now that either don't capture the right data they need that will inform how AI will support them in the future, or they're using systems that overwrite data or don't allow them to store the right data. So I think utilizing AI to inform strategy and to help schools with decision making is going to be really key in the future. Who are my best fit families based on the last 1,000 families that I enrolled into my school, I think will be really interesting, and again, having a really strong database will help with that. But I think all the things you mentioned, Katie, around writing email campaigns, and there are, it should supplement us, right? It should supplement what we do. But one thing, coming back to what I mentioned earlier about, people buying emotionally and justifying logically, I think in the case where anybody's child is involved, there will always be a need for a human element. So we should be using AI to justify and help parents logically justify, the decision. But the admissions teams will always need to be there. I would never make a decision for my child alone based on text that I've seen on a screen or an AI video. So I'm not sure anybody else would either. So yeah, I don't think it'll be replacing our jobs anytime soon anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Almira, Langa, any thoughts on that one in terms of AI use?
No, I actually, yes, I support everything that Katie said. ChatGPT, Napkin, and yes, Canva just to ease the process of the never-ending emails. But yes, other than that, we use a virtual tour. Yes, we got a 3D virtual tour on our website, and especially for international families or even for local families who sometimes cannot come to us during the working hours. Yeah, we just send them the link, and it actually helps them to understand more and see the school for themselves. I mean, it's certainly not like them coming to our school, but it's very, I think it's very comprehensive. So yeah, that's what we've been using, and it's proven to be successful.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Almira. Langa?
Yes, and then it's been mentioned, but just to embrace AI, not even just on the operational side, but also looking at students. We have digital citizenship, so teaching them to ethically use these tools. No point of shielding them from all these tools, but we need to teach them to use it responsibly. So we are doing that in the school in terms of how I personally use it. My colleagues are going to kick the air when they hear my response, but I'm using it very basically with emails.
Yeah.
So there's definitely more I can do. So I've taken notes on what everyone said, but I could use it more than I'm currently using it.
And in terms of trends going forward, so looking at the next sort of 3 to 5 years, are there any particular trends that you're seeing of particular note that will shape the admissions and marketing process in your individual contexts? Katie?
Yeah, I think for us in Vietnam, I think a huge trend that we're seeing is the schools are becoming more like local private schools. We're offering an international curriculum, but we're having, as I had mentioned once before, an increase in our local population. Yeah. Families are staying with us longer. Our retention rate is at 95%. So we'll have students who go K through 12 with the school. So I think we're really looking at independent schools around the world to see how they're doing things, how they're working with the families, how they're interacting on multiple levels with them. We've actually just now in our acceptance email have copied the idea from some of the boarding schools in the States with a welcome video from all the students. So elementary kids and the principal and the head of school now have a video welcome that just elementary kids see, and kids on the playground are waving and saying, welcome, welcome. And that actually came from something on Inspired Ed in their awards thing where they had that. And we were like, oh, that's brilliant. I've never seen an international school do it, but we thought it was a nice touch.
Love that. That's a very cool touch, Katie. Cătălina, what are your thoughts on in terms of trends over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think relocation trends, especially here in Europe, will be very, very affected by what is happening politically and economically. I mean, as you heard over here in Europe, we're talking about rearming, not necessarily education these days. And so I think that's something that will be seen as well in relocation trends. And Ashley was already mentioning that packages are being changed, not just in terms of families not relocating so much because they could work from home sometimes, but also companies providing their employees not with the benefit of schooling, but with an amount that they can then decide how to spend. And so that I think that's going to be a big one. I think that is a big one already and is going to continue in the future. Another thing that I'm thinking is about this move that has already started about towards looking at the experience more than anything else. As also you actually were mentioning, the word of mouth is what is happening in the school and what your friend or the person you are replacing in the company is telling you about that school that matters, not so much what you see on Instagram. And ultimately, I think it's going to be harder and harder for schools which are independent and not affiliated with big school conglomerates to change, because the more you are funded just from tuition, the less flexible you can be to quickly change and adapt to whatever is coming your way. So interesting times ahead, as in the proverbs.
Certainly is. Ashley, what are your thoughts on trends shaping the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because the international schools market has grown so quickly that we almost haven't kept up from our own kind of PD point of view. So an international school in Asia, in Bangkok or in large city in Vietnam is very different to an international school in a large city in Europe. I'd argue they operate more like an independent school. I think, Katie, you kind of mentioned that you're looking towards the independent schools, that because you've got mainly a local parent population, oftentimes they might not speak English natively, or it might be a second or third language. So you're operating more as an independent school. Yet when we approach the conversation around kind of how do we improve our admissions marketing across international schools, we almost approach international schools as one and the same, regardless of where they are around the world. But they're so different, and the challenges faced for a school like Cătălina's worked in Europe is so different to the challenge faced for a school in Asia or Southeast Asia, for example. So I think we'll see schools in Asia look towards more of an independent school type strategy, and schools in Europe will be quite different. I think that's a very high level, but certainly a trend that I think we'll see. And I think beyond the kind of political environment, I think digital experience, full stop, I think is going to be extremely important. Parents are tech savvy already. They're going to become increasingly tech savvy. They want everything at the end of their fingertips, for sure. They already do. I think that's only going to increase. So I think schools will invest heavily in their kind of wider tech ecosystem to make sure that can happen, their overall digital presence. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, but buying decisions are almost already made before you hear about the inquiry, before you receive the email, before you get the phone call from the parent. Because we in our day-to-day lives, when we go out and buy a product, we're looking at reviews, we're searching Google, we're looking at YouTube videos maybe, and we've already almost made the decision to buy. And actually the role of admissions may become more about validation of that decision than so much sales or selling or admissions. I know sales is a dirty word in the world of admissions, but I'm a salesperson, so I'm allowed to say it. More validation of the parent's choice, and making sure parents are aware of all the other added value, but not so much trying to sell the parent on their school versus the others, because they probably already largely made that decision. The schools that will get ahead are those that allow the parents to make that decision through their increased digital presence. And that invest heavily into technology that allow them to do that. So,
Almira, and in terms of the the growth in K-12 education in Saudi Arabia? You know, what do you see over the next 3 to 5 years being key trends?
Well, apart from the number of schools that are growing like mushrooms, I would say, yeah, actually, I agree with Ashley. It's about the personalized experience, and do not push parents, to say like, when you would like to come next, or we can. I mean, of course, we offer taster sessions, or we can have a follow-up meetings, but we always say, have a think. If you have any questions, we're always we're always on the emails, but ultimately it's your choice. For us, it's important that your child is happy, and I think this will always be in trend. Deeply caring for the families. Doesn't matter if they come from overseas or it's just a local family which decided to, for some reason, to place their children in another school. So that.
Langa?
I would say it depends the market in which you're operating. If you compare Southeast Asia or Thailand and Africa, for example, in terms of international schools, you're looking at the families you're catering to. Are they high turnover or long staying? If they're high turnover, they're looking for a school probably where they can transition and get a similar culture in different continents. If they're long staying, they're looking for a cultural fit where their child can start from early as all the way until grade 12 from pre-K. So it also depends your market and who you're catering to. That also largely influences how parents look at your school.
So yeah, last question. If you could give one piece of advice for any individual international school looking to strengthen their marketing and admissions processes, what would that be? Katie, it'd be great to get your thoughts on that one.
I think I'd have 2 if it's allowed. I think networking. I think reaching out to colleagues, looking what universities are doing, really staying informed. I think there's a lot of great resources out there. A lot of great companies like Veracross, like Finalsite, like Open Apply are doing some amazing professional development, and really participating in that. And then whatever the platform is that you have, really exploit it. I think a lot of our schools buy software systems and then we get a little bit of training and we use it a little bit, but we don't really exploit the softwares to their fullest capabilities. I'm a huge believer in asking questions, almost to the point where people don't want to answer all of my questions, but ask, because somebody probably out there knows how to use your system just a little bit better, and then maximize it. Yeah. I think that there are some great tools out there, so let's take advantage of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing insights is so key as well, isn't it? Cătălina, what would you advise?
I will replicate one advice that I heard one of my heroes, Dr. Brené Brown, give to her team, which is it's okay to, she used a different language, but I'm not going to use it here. It's okay to make a mistake, but not if we were not paying attention. I would say the advice is pay attention, be present and pay attention, because what, I notice many times that is a killer for the experience and for the work in the admissions office is just settling for, it's working. So, I'm not going to make any changes or look at the families in terms of maybe they need something different. So pay attention, be present and pay attention, and then the rest will follow.
Fantastic. Ashley, what would be your one piece of advice?
I would just say invest in admissions and marketing, full stop. That'd be my advice to school leadership. Give admissions and marketing teams a seat at the leadership table, invest in technology solutions, invest in professional development. They are the driving force behind the organization's success, the school's success. I think, long gone are the days of admissions professionals being viewed as well, they're probably not gone, actually. Maybe this is the problem, but being viewed as administrative roles and not, sales and marketing and leadership roles at the school. So invest in admissions and marketing overall. Pretty broad advice there, but I think schools, some schools should take note.
Cătălina agrees with that one. I think everyone agrees with that one on this call, especially. Langa, what would be your one piece of advice?
My piece of advice would be to stay passionate and remember why you love what you do, and then make sure you're always in a school where you and the rest of the leadership, or if you're not in leadership, everyone wants to grow, improve, and conversations that you have are just to better the school, because if you have that, you'll always be passionate. So that would be my advice.
Almira?
So I would say to stay kind, be compassionate, but also communicative and empathetic towards the families, because ultimately the educational services that we sell, they're not tangible. So you can't really grasp it. So I think it's very important that apart from being, the kind and welcoming, also that we offer exceptional customer service, because ultimately I think the admissions is a blend of customer service and sales, because we need to close that deal basically. And we all work in these international schools, which are very, I think, the high end, at the premium end. And yes, we should be, I don't know, Ritz-Carlton of schools, something, and when you think about those establishments like a hotel, they prepare, they know everything about you, everything is ready. So I think that's how admissions in every school should work.
Awesome. Lovely way to finish it. Thanks so much, Almira. Thank you, everyone on this call. That's absolutely fascinating. And to just get so many different perspectives from all different corners of the globe. Thank you all so much for joining and sharing your insights.